This is the Photo Roundup, all the best photography news in 5 minutes or less for February 25, 2016. You're watching the Photo Roundup. This week, Sigma took the wraps off its 50 to 100 millimeter f1.8 lens, and I've got to say, it looks awesome. It may make me $1,100 poorer, but when have we ever seen a competitive focal length to the famous 70 to 200? And this one is f1.8. It looks like an awesome lens, but of course we haven't been able to test it yet. It's only been announced. It is only for crop sensor cameras, and it has no image stabilization, which, if you ask me, is a real bummer, but it does look like a very interesting lens. In other news, DJI has driven me to near the brink of insanity. Weeks after I bought the DJI Phantom 3, they have released a teaser video for the DJI Phantom 4. This quadcopter lifts a 4K, maybe 6K camera, depending on what rumor site you listen to, and looks to have a glossy body, some extra sensors, and is probably going to be priced around $1,700, though it is marked for enthusiast photographers, unlike the DJI Phantom 3 Professional, which is marked for professional photographers on their pricing list. We'll see what comes out of this announcement on March 1, but it means I've got to make a return to Amazon. In other news, this one was just a horribly sad story. Being in the photography industry and seeing a lot of the behind-the-scenes things that happen with some of the well-known photographers, I'm kind of not surprised to see another photographer being called out for some pretty inexcusable behavior online. And this time it comes from Jake Olson. This story comes from Resource Mag Online. Jake Olson got in several arguments with listeners, with his readers, his fans, and his customers on several of his social media posts, saying things like, "You've been publicly shamed, move on. Oh, and seriously, give suicide some thought." And honestly, that's not even the worst one on here. Just some horrible things. It's a note to all photographers to know the people that you're following and know the people that you're supporting by buying their tutorials, because a lot of it is just absolutely disgusting. So it was just a sad story. This next story comes to us from Petapixel, where a photographer in California took pictures on a boat using steel wool, an old dried wooden boat, and then put steel wool on it. Well, hot news, sparks can cause fire, and the fear is that this photographer has learned the hard way. It's unclear that the photographer started this fire. There's not evidence of that, but it may be possible that that's what caused this. And I will say that it's a temptation for photographers to do this. When I was on a workshop a couple years ago, we photographed the Mary D. Hume in Oregon, and some of the photographers wanted to use steel wool on it, and I said, absolutely no way that this is going to happen. So do be careful when you are using steel wool in your photography. Next, Sigma has joined the mirrorless camera fray by releasing their SD Quattro H and SD Quattro cameras. But what does it really matter? Because in 5 years of professional photography, I've seen dozens of cameras released by Sigma, and I've never once met a photographer that actually shoots them, maybe because of their ridiculous sensor claims on their Bayer sensors. And last, as a lawyer, I'm always interested in the legal kind of minded stories, and this one comes from Petapixel, where two photographers in Philadelphia sued the city after the police stopped the photographers from photographing the police. The lesson to learn from the whole thing in both cases is, if you're photographing police, you can have a stronger case if they try to stop you if you're expressing something with your photos. If it's just something interesting, police arresting somebody and snap, you may not have as strong of a case as if you have a reason to criticize, to to protest, things like that. So have an opinion when you're photographing police is all we learned from this, and take a picture to protest the way that police are dealing with a person, to show the bad things that people are doing, whatever. Express something with your photos and make sure that's clear to the police, and you're going to have a much stronger case. That's all we really need to know from that story. Thanks for joining me on the Photo News Roundup for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Improve Photography podcast on iTunes so you can learn photography on the go. It's a 45-minute audio show to get photography tips while you shop or commute or whatever else, when otherwise your mind would just be mush. See ya.